It's fascinating, mashallah. You could talk for a long, long time. I just want to take this conversation in a slightly different direction, and it will help us into the Q&A. And it's to do with your da'wah work and this concern that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in your heart in helping people deal with issues surrounding getting married and staying married and divorce. And I just wanted to explore that, although you and I have agreed that you'll come back and do another session on that, because that's, it is, especially the demographics of people I deal with, this is a big topic, getting married. If you can tell us a little bit about that. I remember you, mashallah, when you came to Tareem, and that you were studying the chapter of Nikah, and you studied with Abdullah ibn Uthman, who I studied with as well, and you also studied with Habib Mashur. So you and I were in Habib Mashur's class for the Minhaj, studying Nikah. And I remember also would spend, and that was in the afternoon, would spend, an hour in the heat, in the sun, although your house is around the corner, I had to walk 10 more minutes down the ditch somewhere to get to my place. But we'd spend quite a bit of time talking about issues to do with how do we take the fiqh from the books and take it to the practical world that is awaiting us. And I think sometimes for students of knowledge, you try to shove the world into Ramli ibn Hajar. It's like you have to squeeze it in and see what comes out. And the world's far more complex than to squeeze it into a particular school. Although we have to follow a particular school, but again, the world's far more complex. And the idea of, well, what happens if that particular opinion in the Shafi'i school isn't the most appropriate opinion for the reality in which you are going back? What do other schools say? And I think one thing that I benefited from you was the idea of broadening your horizon. And it's interesting, you were talking before in the beginning about, you spent different time with different type of scholars. I think that definitely trickled down to people like myself when, you'd come and you spend hours in discussions with us and talking to us about what is it that you're going to be doing when you get back. What about this issue? Have you ever thought about this issue? What do you think of this? And it kind of stumped us a lot because we were in the bubble. Could you study these books of fiqh and hadith and spirituality, and then you're like, okay, you've got all the answers, and then here you come along and say, well, what about this? Or have you thought about this? Or how do you deal with this situation? Things that we just never thought about because we're in Tareem. And mashallah, Tareem is a environment in itself, very different from any other environment, say 20 minutes or half an hour down the road in Sayoun, very different city. But mashallah kind of is interesting. And again, one of the big things for yourself was the idea of marriage. So I might just briefly want to talk about issues around marriage and what it is that you actually doing, inshallah.
Yeah, so I think even within Islamic studies, there's a hadith, kullun muyassun lima khuliqa lahu, that everyone's kind of it's made easy for what you're being created for. In other words, you have a certain nature. My nature is not your nature. We have different natures. Yeah, some people are serious, some people are light-hearted. Some people like fiqh, some people don't like fiqh. So in terms of even the studies themselves, I remember Islamic finance, some people said to me, why don't you go to Islamic finance? Again, a good career, you'll make good money, and it's an honorable career for a scholar, etc. But it was never really something that touched my heart. I was always more into personal things. And when I was studying, the people I kind of knew, they would ask me questions from time to time. I realized they were always personal questions. They're always personal things. They're always things to do with marriage. And I started to give some people some advice, and I realized that people were getting a lot of wrong advice, and it was creating more problems in the community. So I thought, okay, this is a big gap which needs to be plugged. And also for me, it was like, okay, say I went to Islamic finance, right, and I bring up this brilliant product. Okay, so it's obviously a khidmat service. people can get, for example, halal insurance right now because of, alhamdulillah, I've worked on this, they can get halal insurance. But if that person's marriage is in tatters, then halal insurance, whether he's got halal insurance or not, his life's going to be a mess. If a person's running, in government, the prime minister, somebody who's got the highest job, if their personal life is in tatters, it affects their professional life. So I thought that actually the biggest impact is in marriage, because if we don't get that right, that impacts every aspect of the world, of the community. And whatever role they're doing in the community, if their own personal life is in difficulty, it will impact their work. So if we can help everyone sort their marriages out, we're actually going to tick a lot of boxes off. We're going to help the community in so many different ways, because you will allow all these people to perform at their optimum, because their personal life is stable. So I made that kind of decision a few years kind of before the end of my studies, that this is the area I think I can help my community. I'm not, I'm not the kind of theological person that's going to go into university and discuss philosophers and all that. I'll leave that to someone else. That's not me. I'm not into Islamic finance. What I'm into is this personal stuff. So, and even when I studied law, it was one of the subjects I really enjoyed, which family law. So I started to concentrate on that that area. And even when I went to study, like in Yemen, I took counsel from my teachers that, look, I want to go into this area. So what do I need to do to prepare myself for that? So a lot of my studies towards the end were geared towards preparing me for that role of me coming back and kind of, I don't want to say counselling, because counselling means a certain thing in the Western world, but I would say marriage advice and guidance. So more or less straight away, as soon as I get back to the UK, I was playing that. I was in that role. I was talking to people, listening to people's problems, pretty much from the word go. We set up a charity, Unity Family Services, which was, the goal was to help the Muslim community strengthen the family unit. I mean, I did it voluntarily for many years, but that, I think, was so insightful, because I got firsthand look into what was really going on in the community. This is the thing, you kind of see things that are happening, but you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I was getting this. Huh?
What did you see?
Oh, I saw all sorts of stuff happening, which, again, like you're saying, you couldn't open a book of fiqh and get the answer. You were put into a situation, you're like, oh my Lord, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do I even say to this person? And so that, I think, really, really opened my eyes to what was really going on in the community. And I think if you teach, I mean, everything's a khidmah, but I think when you get into the personal stuff, you get an insight. You're an imam. You were an imam for a long time. You will know yourself. People will say stuff to you, and you're just in like disbelief. Like, you're like, okay, I've heard it all, and I've stopped saying that phrase, because I've not. Because there's always something new that's happened. I'm like, oh my God, I've never thought of that either. So it was just stuff which you never would have assumed that was going to happen. I mean, I remember years ago. I'll give you an example. Years ago, this is in the first early days when I've come back. I'm actually driving my BM, right, and I got a call from the sister who used to help me with the appointments, and she says, "Look, Sheikh, I've got this situation with this sister. Her husband's been unfaithful, and as terrible as that is, but it's not the first time I'd come across that. So okay, she's been unfaithful. Okay, we'll book an appointment, etc." She goes, "Yeah, but there's a bit more to it." I said, "What is it?" Because she knew the sister. I said, "Yeah." So I'm driving. She goes, "Her husband's been unfaithful with another man." And I just pulled the car. I remember pulling the car over. I said, "What did you just say to me there?" And she said it again. And I'm like, oh my Lord, what am I going to do now, right? What am I going to say? And I'm like, okay, book her in tomorrow, right? Because we need to see this sister, because she had a child with him as well. And this, I don't want to get into the details, but basically it was not your let's just say it wasn't somebody who you would expect to have done that. It was someone who, for example, had a bigger beard than me, right? Not the typical kind of person you'd say it is. You'd be shocked the kind of person it was. It's the kind of person who, he was very strict on his fiqh. As a Hanafi, he wouldn't eat anything which is not fish and things like that. So he's very strict, and he was very strict with her, but that he was leading this kind of double life. So straight away, you're like, okay, I can't even call one of my teachers and tell them this is the situation. What do I do? Because my teacher's going to be like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Right? So you're in a situation where you're like, hold on, this is a real person's life. They've come to me for help, right? I have a duty in front of God to help this person. Now, what do I do? And this is where it's not just enough to know fiqh. It's everything that you've learned from experience, from talking to teachers, and the stuff you've read from like secular stuff. You're bringing all of it together to try to come up with an answer which is going to be workable for this person, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. I just like I said to you very recently, maybe a week ago, I had a brother who's got sexuality issues, and he went to another imam. And again, the imam means well, and he's very educated, but his solution to him was get married. And he didn't think that was a good solution. And I said to him, don't get married. For you in your situation, you should not be getting married. You're going to make a mess, because I've seen other people do it. They've been in that situation. They've tried to do that, and they've been a mess of it. So again, certain things you learn through experience, and I think because I've had, I was dealing with about 100 cases a year. So over 10 years, I've done over 1,000 cases, and this is all sorts of different situations: before marriage, after marriage, all sorts of stuff going on, different ages, different dynamics, and so through all that, and sometimes you do make mistakes. You don't always get it right, but I think that has just given me an insight into really what's going on in a lot of people's lives. And then what happens is it actually changes the way you look at fiqh. It changes the way you look at your sciences, because you realize, I've got to deal with this reality that it's in front of me, and I can't be giving people which is something. It's not, they're over here, and I'm talking about something which is over there. It's got to be something where you've got to give them practical steps, which are doable steps to get them, to where they need to get to. We're dealing with issues like porn addiction, which was never a question 20 years ago that I would have come across, but now it's a very real problem, because of the mobile phone. So you can't just say, do tawbah, throw your, don't go into the internet, don't do this, don't do that, do wudu and pray 5 times a day. That's not going to work. You have to then say, okay, well, this is a person, this is where they are. How do I now get this person from here to there? What do I need to do? What's the progression from this place to this place? And this is the thing, it's a very individual thing. What I've learned over the years is that no two situations are the same. So it becomes very difficult to give answers sometimes to questions, because the dynamics can be different from one person to another person, and you need to change your answer slightly according to the situation. So it's quite a complex area.
It's an area that you really excel in. I must say, mashallah, it is your calling, and I think your personality suits it, and it's something that, mashallah, it's a desire that it's clearly a desire that you have risen to, and the challenge that you've risen to, and it's a massive thing. I only wish we had more people like you, because mashallah, you've actually studied fiqh in all 4 madhabs to do with bab al-nikah. I think that's massively important, because that gives you an edge over others who are well-meaning but do not have the classical educational foundation upon which to stand upon. And if they do, it's perhaps just one madhab. You've done all 4,
Yeah.
which is a massive advantage,
Yeah.
no doubt.